When we look at oxygen delivery, so this is the amount of oxygen transported to the tissue per minute by the blood, right? And this depends on how much oxygen the blood carries and how much blood the heart pumps, right? So when we look at the formula that we use to for the oxygen delivery, like we said, is going to be the cardiac output multiplied by arterial oxygen content, right? And when we look at our cardiac output, right, if you remember, is stroke volume multiplied by heart rate. And anything that affects the oxygen delivery to the tissue will lead to tissue what? Hypoxia. So let's now look at the arterial oxygen content. So like I mentioned earlier, so the arterial oxygen content would be the combination of both the oxygen in the plasma, right, plus the oxygen on the hemoglobin. So the oxygen on the hemoglobin will be 1.34 multiplied by hemoglobin multiplied by your oxygen saturation, right? And in the plasma will be 0.0031 multiplied by partial pressure of oxygen in the plasma. So where do we get 1.34 from? So each gram of hemoglobin carry about each gram of hemoglobin can carry about 1.34 mils of oxygen, right? And the hemoglobin, right? So hemoglobin will be hemoglobin concentration, right? And the saturation, right? So this reflects how much oxygen bound to the hemoglobin, right? And then we also spoke about the partial pressure of oxygen in the plasma already, right? So when you look at through these variables, so what are the major contributors to the oxygen content? So the major contributors to the arterial oxygen contents include the 1.34 that we mentioned, and most importantly, your hemoglobin. So the hemoglobin is a major determinant of the arterial oxygen content. And you can see with the partial pressure of oxygen in the plasma, this is just a minor what? A minor contribution. So if you look at, so at the end of the day, if you look at, if you extend our formula, like we said, so if you look at the oxygen, the formula for oxygen delivery, right? So formula for oxygen delivery will be our cardiac output, right? Multiplied by oxygen content. And we said that oxygen content will be 1.34 multiplied by hemoglobin multiplied by oxygen saturation, right? Plus, so we're going to add this, right? 0.0031 multiplied by 0.2. So when you so looking at this formula, so anything that affects any of these variables will lead to decreased oxygen delivery, and that will lead to hypoxia. So if somebody have decrease in cardiac output, like any form of shock, right, then that could lead to decreased oxygen to the tissue, and that could lead to what? Hypoxia. If somebody is bleeding, right, somebody who have anemia, right, that could lead to decreased oxygen delivery to the tissue, and that could lead to what? Hypoxia. If somebody have decreased oxygen saturation, right, as we're going to see in a second, that could lead to decreased oxygen to the tissue, and that could lead to hypoxia. If somebody have decrease in partial pressure of oxygen, right, which is what we call hypoxemia, that could lead to decreased oxygen to the tissue, and that could lead to what? Hypoxia.